We were married here by Dan McCall 40 years ago. Or, Mom's ashes are right through that wall in the columbarium. And when I sit here, I feel that I am close to her. Or it was here on a Sunday 15 years ago that I first heard the choir and they sounded like angels, and they still do. Or it was just last week that I felt like everything in my life was coming apart and I wasn't going to make it through, but I came to church and somehow I just know that God's going to get me through it all. Frederick Buechner, in one of his books, describes how the sanctuary of another Presbyterian church became a sacred meeting place for him and how it changed his life. He writes that in his 20s, I started going to church regularly. And what was farcical about it was my reason for going, which was simply that it was on the same block where I lived. And there happened to be this church with a preacher that I'd heard of. And I didn't have a whole lot better to do on my lonely Sunday mornings. The preacher was a man named George Buttrick, and Sunday after Sunday I went, and sermon after sermon I heard. It was not just his eloquence that kept me coming back, though he was wonderfully eloquent. What drew me more was whatever it was that his sermons came from, and whatever it was in me that was touched so deeply. Well, I suspect over the years, among whatever it is that has kept people coming to Starmount, it has been something like that. Something that has touched us deeply. And it may not have so much to do with what is said or done as much as that in our own heart we are ready to receive it and hear it. The words that are said here have been spoken before, and they may be words that our ears haven't heard as true yet, because that deeper place within us wasn't ready to receive them. Jesus did not tear down the temple or throw out organized religion. Instead, I think Jesus wanted to remind us that at its best, the church, the temple, the sanctuary is none other than the house of God, the gateway to heaven, the one place in all the world uniquely devised to connect us with all that is good and kind and wonderful and holy. Well, Anne Lamott tells a story about a little girl, 7 years old, who got lost one day. She ran up and down the streets of the big town where she lived, but she couldn't find a single landmark to get her home. Finally, a policeman stopped her. So he put her in the car with him in the passenger seat, and they drove around town looking for her, something that she would find familiar. Finally, they went past her church. And she said to the policeman, "Hey, that's my church. It's okay. You can stop. Let me out now. You can let me out. This is my church. And I can always find my way home from here." The sanctuary you and I seek on earth is the one that leads us to the sanctuary of heaven. And while it's never enough to have only these little foretastes of the kingdom of heaven, they do point us to and connect us with God, the holiest of all. Which is why no matter how much it may need cleaning up, we keep coming back. Because it's only from here, from the church, from the sanctuary, that you and I can always find our way home. Thanks be to God.